The following information and opinions expressed on the Sweet Divorce podcast do not constitute nor are intended to be taken as legal advice. All content is generalized and for informational purposes only. Please contact our legal team or your own attorney for advice specific to your particular case. Thank you. It's sweet divorce. Life's sweeter after divorce. Let us help you get there.
Hello, this is Rosario Burgos Santoyo, founding partner of Burgos Santoyo Smith, and this is my partner, Gretel Smith. Today we are joined with Jeff Williams. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, first of all. I haven't seen you guys in person for, gosh, a handful of months, but it's good to see you on camera, especially close to the holidays. So yeah, my name's Jeff Williams. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. We call that an LCSW. And there's a couple different monikers you have when you're a therapist, a mental health therapist with folks. So I, along with a business partner, run a local practice called Pathways Family Therapy. We do a lot of work with families, teens, couples, individual stuff. We do groups. We kind of cover a lot of bases. And we have a background in the treatment industry, like working with residential treatment and long-term treatment and also short-term care. So yeah, we have offices in Chula Vista and then also in Sorrento Valley. So we're kind of like Central and South San Diego.
Okay, terrific. Well, so we invited you to join our podcast today. The holidays are coming up, like we said, we discussed, and there seems to be a lot of family strife during the holidays.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to kind of talk to a therapist about how your perspective on navigating some of those family conflicts that come up during the holidays.
Ways to prevent them as well as possibly ways to cope if they've already begun.
Yeah. A big topic, and there's a huge range, right? There's kind of like if just getting into where we're at right now in the election cycle, it's like, okay, politics is a big one. And that's like minor compared to, okay, we've had, domestic violence, that's like at this far end of things, right? So
yes.
Depending on the family, sometimes it could just be loss. And that's the conflict of like, so we just lost somebody that really meant a lot to us in the family 6 months ago. How present are they in our festivities? Do we bring them up? Do we not? So there's like all these pieces of conflict that can be physical, but it can also like be emotional, and not everybody's going through the same thing. So it's hard to always recognize. But I'm glad we're having this conversation because hopefully that will help people little by little tune into some of the red flags or the little signals.
So what are some red flags maybe for a major family conflict where maybe domestic violence could be brewing?
Yeah, well, I tend to think that for the major ones, it's not the first time around. If it is, then you're probably not going to recognize the signals unless, I don't know, you're around it all the time. I mean, you guys do family law, I do therapy. We might be able to recognize some early red flags, but if it's never occurred before where it's like high level, and by high level, I'm thinking really when you're so angry that you're trying to hurt somebody. Not, hey, I'm throwing my opinion out. I'm so passionate that I'm not slowing down to recognize where you're at. And if I'm stepping on your passions or, your opinions, but where it can even turn physical, or it has turned physical. So usually those things, people know, they've been through this. It's been an escalating situation. It just might not be something that they shared with the rest of the family. And that can be a dangerous thing because you're stepping into something where maybe for some people, they say, you know what, we have to do this. We have to put on airs. Not everybody knows. So we're going to play this role. And then whether it's both partners or however many parties are involved, somebody's more volatile and, boom, in the middle of family dinner. And everybody then is aware, But the person that was kind of connected with that individual likely already had experiences, sadly. So it's kind of like, I think with that, like, how do you deal with that? How do you avoid it? I kind of know before you go, know what you're walking into. I think already assessing like, how could this go? What are the options? Having backup plans of like, how do we stop this? Because the pause button is so important in therapy. And I think it's important in life too, of like, how do I stop this? If the train just starts going without the brakes, what's the plan?
So how would you stop this? Let's see. I mean, I love that you described it as a pause button. Can you tell us about how you can create a pause button for yourself? What would you put in place? What steps would you have if something does happen during Thanksgiving dinner and you need a break. You need to step on the brakes. You need to push pause to separate yourself from whatever could escalate further or to diffuse the situation. What do you do?
Yeah, so there's a range in this one too. So the if I start with the full assertiveness version, which some people have naturally, but a lot of us have to really like develop and work up to. The full assertiveness version might be if somebody says something that I feel is attacking, threatening, truly offensive, that in the midst of that dinner, I would say, you know what, I really disagree with what you're saying, or you know, that's really hurtful. I might need some time on this. Can we pause this conversation and jump back to what we were talking about before? Now, that might not roll out well across the table. It's going to change the mood, but the mood has already been changed. Likely, if you're feeling that, other people are feeling it too. So the assertiveness like takes something that a lot of people are feeling, and you're being the voice for that. So
Okay.
it's already a lot of times in those instances, it's already uncomfortable. People are just acting. And when the person that shares that puts it out there, then everybody reshuffles. They may even fake it that they were acting and continue the act. But for yourself, it's time to put a pause on it. And that's an abrupt way to do it because it's hard for somebody to overrule that in a family setting. You know what? You're crazy. I'm going to keep going because you could say, then I'm going to get up and step away for a little bit. And it starts to look like once you assert a boundary, if somebody steps over it and you do a nice job of setting a boundary, when they step over it, it seems very obvious that they're disrespecting that boundary. I mean, a boundary is such a therapist-y word, right? I had to bring it up.
No,
On
I
this
love it.
one,
That's why
Yeah.
you're
We hear that term we hear that term so much is setting boundaries. So when is the best time to start setting those boundaries? Maybe heading into a family gathering or just general, you know.
yeah, the pregame is so important. I mean, for me, a lot of these scenarios, I would say, gosh, let's go 5 days before, let's go 5 months before, whatever it is. And I'm already prepping people, you know. And now I'm a therapist. I do this for a living. And in my personal life, I've had to learn assertiveness because I was very shy, very quiet, but I did a lot of thinking in my head. And so once I started transferring that thinking outside, then I can get ahead of things. I already know how most people are going to react. I already know the situation. So it's like doing math. Okay, 2 + 2 + 2, 6. We want to stay at a level 4. 6 is too much. So
right.
how do I navigate that? Sometimes it's prepping, you know, beforehand. I might meet with one family member or call them on the phone and say, hey, I got to ask you a favor. If Uncle such and such brings this up, I'm going to like kind of turn the conversation a bit. Can you back me up or at least not jump in with him? Because usually you jump in with him and it's a lot harder for me to hit that pause button or turn the cart. So I might already be working on some like soft alliances, not trying to throw people under the bus, just letting
Right.
people know my needs, you know?
Yes. That's such great advice. I was going to ask, I know that you also have children as clients, is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah.
So would you change your assertiveness or the language that you use knowing that there's a child present? Like say this is an ex-spouse. What if it's during an exchange that you're having to set boundaries and your child is present? Is there any way that you could frame it in a way that would be less detrimental to the child to witness that there is strife between mom and dad?
Yeah, so this is a great question and a tough one to answer because there's, again, you're going to hear me say this range thing so much over and over, right? But there's a range of how partners or co-parents at this stage, whatever stage they're at, are going to talk to each other and how much they're going to spill onto their kids. So if this is a situation where one or both parents often kind of spill, and by spill, I mean where, let's say the kids are with one parent and that parent says, well, you're lucky with me because your father or your mother would, you know how they are, they blah, da, 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 da. And that is already marking them, right? If that's happening all the time, then the kids are used to it. So having that happen at the dinner, the kids might get embarrassed, but a lot of times if that's already happening, the kids, sadly, but in some ways, there's a silver lining in that the kids may not be traumatized by that one instance. They're getting traumatized by the hundreds of instances, right?
That's
It's sad,
true. It
but
is
it's
very
kind of
sad.
true. The kids that I work with, sometimes parents, um, might walk on eggshells around certain things. And when you get the kid one-on-one, the kid knows exactly what's going on. The parents might be thinking, yeah, we hid this from them. We're thinking of separating, and you meet with the kid and the kid's like, yeah, they never talk and they've been sleeping in different rooms. And the parents don't even think the kids know they're sleeping in different rooms. So kids are oftentimes very, very sharp. But I do believe that even if you're going to set a boundary with a partner or someone in the family, I mean, the tactful way is always the best way. Assertiveness can have a lot of honey in it. Like I'm assertive all the time and people let me be because I'm so respectful and I'm good with how I deliver it. So the positive delivery helps the situation, but yes, it totally helps the kids. The less tension, kids are sponges a lot of times. And if they're not sponges, then sometimes what they've developed is an ability to not be a sponge, which is even sometimes sadder because they've had to turn that part of themselves off because it's not safe.
I mean, I think that goes to just in general with custody disputes and what we do, seeing the children because they're the ones that get the worst part of a divorce or a separation. And when there's high conflict, which we deal with a lot of high conflict divorces and conflict custody issues, and ways to I think the more parents hear that fighting with each other in front of the children, fighting in general, the kids are it's hurting the children more than anything. So what kind of advice would you have, especially during the holidays, to prevent parents during an exchange from having
Yeah.
a negative and a negative impact on their children, which again, like you said, that one impact might not be traumatic, but to start changing the script for them,
Yeah.
right? But this isn't okay. We are going to start interacting in a more peaceful manner because we recognize that this is not healthy for you. Child.
Yeah. A lot of different approaches, but I'm going to focus just on one because I think it's the most powerful, is that whole, it takes two to tango. So if the fire is going to grow, it's probably going to grow hotter with both people escalating. So if I'm worried about that, I'm going to be pretty disengaged. Now you might say, but you're a therapist. You're supposed to be stating about assertiveness and why not get into it and talk about it and work through it. That works if both parties are wanting to have progress. But if they're not, then I can easily just back out of a conversation. If you guys right now had said like, Jeff, we think sweaters are ridiculous. All gray sweaters are the worst of them all. And I said, well, gray sweater, I actually think the gray sweater. And then you go, well, I think that, and it just little by little escalates. If I go, I just do that. I don't even say anything. I just go, it's hard for you guys can keep, and we think collared shirts, and whatever else. But if I just kind of, now, I might not be setting the optimal example because my kids are seeing somebody just talk to me, but I can talk with them afterwards. And I think a lot of people recognize that example because they're feeling the tension and they're allowing that to die down. Now, that works as long as that other person's not going to escalate to the point of violence.
We're going to take a quick break. Sweet Divorce will be right back after these messages.
Need help with your divorce? Not to worry. Here at Burgos Santoyo Smith, we have the answers to all your questions pertaining to court orders, mediation, family law, and healthy co-parenting. Find us at www.bsslegal.com or give us a call at 833-931-1615. That's 833-931-1615. We are here to serve you with several locations in California, from San Diego, Escondido, El Centro, and Monterey, and one location in Swansea, Illinois. Burgos Santoyo Smith. Life's sweeter after divorce. Let us help you get there.
Want more Sweet Divorce? Find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at BSS Legal.
If that other person is going to escalate to the point of violence, then I think you need to step fully away. If it's a situation where you can't step fully away with the kids, then I'm looking at who are my supports. Where's my cohesive unit within the family that's going to step in and prevent that? Or do we need to pick up and leave? Or do the police need to be called? These are all escalating steps, but it allows me to step back and not engage. So that idea of like, if I'm worried about that happening, you always have the ability to step back and just allow those person's words to come over you so that you're not escalating them. Because you might see it as, I'm not really escalating, I'm just responding, but this person sees it as a provocation, even if they're wrong about that. So they go higher.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to keep them down, sometimes it's just about not getting into it.
You mentioned a conversation with your kids after the exchange to explain why you're letting someone essentially talk down to you or put you down without responding or defending yourself. So what would that conversation with your kid look like after the exchange? How would
Yeah.
you explain that?
Yeah, a very general way that I would approach that is not like, well, did you see how mommy was or did you see how daddy was? Because that gets into kind of throwing them under the bus. So
Right.
I would approach it saying, hey guys, how'd you feel about that? Can we talk about that a little bit? What was that like for you? I'm trying to just give them a space to recognize what happened
Yes.
and what their experience in it is. And there might be little pieces of that I can draw out more, and they might have questions. When kids have questions, I tend to answer up to the level of their question. So if they say, Daddy, what's a zoo? Oh, a zoo's a place where there's a lot of animals. I don't get into the rights of animals or how much the popcorn costs or anything. But if they say, do they have popcorn there? Yeah, they do. How much does it cost? The kids will guide you to their questions. And sometimes parents go over that and give all this information that opens up other boxes for kids that they're not yet privy to. So let the kid guide the questions. And the start of that is just pulling them aside and saying, hey guys, how are you doing with that exchange, with that I had with mom or with dad over the thing? It felt a little tense. For me, it doesn't have to feel that way to you, but I just want to give you guys some space if you need a hug, if you want to talk about it, and if the other parent is safe, I would encourage them to talk about it with the other parent too, because we're trying to be progressive with this and build bridges.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah, I love
letting the children guide the questions. That's so true. I mean, I didn't even realize, you know what, I am over explaining things like, oh, well,
But it's important to give your child that space to come up with their own ideas and their own feelings and process those feelings, especially in custody matters. I think we see that a lot.
Yeah.
Any advice for a married couple that is, or not married, even just a couple that is experiencing domestic violence? One of the partners is violent, maybe not physically right now, maybe they are, on how to just get through the holidays because maybe that we'll call them the victim, just wants to get through the holidays and then they're going to possibly split. What's the safest way for somebody like that to prepare? And I know that's a loaded question, but in your mind, during the holidays, what's the safest way for that person to get through so that they can get to the other side?
Yeah. So
Because
they've
it
already
is.
decided that
Mhm.
I'm done with this relationship and they haven't had the conversation yet with their partner about that.
Correct. Because of the level of violence maybe in that relationship and they're afraid of what could happen. We
Yeah.
do have couples like that often that are afraid to talk to the other partner because there's such a level of violence there that, when they're ready to go, they're going to go.
Yeah.
But to prepare just to get through that last month or that holiday, that last Christmas, because in their mind, they've convinced themselves that the last Christmas with their children and their family intent is what they need to get through.
Yeah. So this may not be the greatest answer to this one, but if it's unsafe, kind of hierarchy of needs and level of safety, then you're going to play along. In a sense, you're just going to go with the flow and try and roll with it. Now, if this is a thing where it's going to get violent during the event, then I'm going back to, okay, is my mom with me? Is my dad with me? Are my siblings with me so that they can help me manage the situation? Can I prep them on that and let them know that this is likely to happen and what's our plan? So I'm going to do some pre-planning with my coalition on that. Coalition meaning just the people that are in my camp that care about me, that hear me out, right? If it's a situation where it's just a worry that there's violence at home, but it's not shown in front of the family, yes, I'm not going to be telling that person, hey, just so you know, after the holidays, I'm out of here because that's going to raise the stakes. I'm all for talking about things, but it has to be safe to talk about things. So if it's not safe, then this is one of those rare instances that I'd say like playing the role. Therapists aren't really huge into playing the role. It's like, let's get you out of the role and get you into your authenticity. But with this, if it's not safe to be authentic, then you play that role a little bit more. Then after the fact, going back to like my support system, if I'm playing the role, then I'm taking in a lot. And so I need a place to process it. So I'd be trying to find who's my best friend, or, who's that family member, church body, whatever the connecting point is. Where can I talk through this afterwards? Because I don't want to hold all this. I kind of want to, I need to process some of this. It's a lot to take in when I'm acting. Instead of asserting myself, holding boundaries, directing traffic, if I'm acting, there's a lot that's just coming towards me and I'm not able to even show that I'm blocking it. So there's kind of the pre-game, the in the game, and then the post game. And the pre and post kind of have a lot to do with support. And in the moment, if it's not safe, then you're going to go with the flow and deal with it when it can be safer.
Some excellent advice.
Yes. At what points do you think it's important to provide your child with with professional help, with a therapist? At what point do you think that the conversations that you're having with your child might not be enough for them to feel that they have a safe space to fully express themselves? Are there any clues to that, or is there any particular time during a high tense family ordeal that you would recommend starting that conversation?
The earlier, the better. And it depends on the age of the kid, kind of their personality, aptitude. But if it's a young kid, then they're witnessing this stuff and it is having an effect. So, I mean, I'm biased, I'm a therapist, but I don't see therapy as this like heavy thing. Most of the time I'm meeting with people, it's us having a conversation and exploring things. Sure, sometimes people are in tears, but they're their tears. They're working through things. They're healthy tears in that regard. And with teenagers, we're really working out like, hey, what's your thought process on this? Where's the piece where your independence starts and your parents' authority begins? Where's the relationship in between that? With young kids, sometimes you're just trying to give them a space to be themselves and be free. You're not even getting into content. You're giving them the experience of an accepting space because that's different than what the home looks like at the time, So I think early is better. Especially if it's a contentious divorce, even a regular separation, it's going to have a big pull on someone. So giving somebody a place to have a conversation about it is really nice. The tough thing about separations with kids, even nice separations, is that most kids, at least the ones that I've spoken with, if they go to mom, it's hard to open up because they feel like, how do I do this? I've never been taught. Parents have never shown me how to do this. And it doesn't feel like the normal opening up, like if I hurt myself outside or somebody made fun of me at school, because the person that I'm like, the other person that's not here that I'd be talking about, I also care about. And if I go over here, it's the same thing. So what do I do? Both parents might be fully capable to talk with their child, but the child might feel like, I don't know how to do this. If you go see a therapist that's comfortable and a good fit, the child can do that without that kind of like, am I going to offend? Am I going to say? Because this is just a therapist. They're not connected to the family, so it's like an independent person. A young kid might not be thinking that, on the top of their brain, but that's the experience is like, this person isn't mom or dad. So just the fact that they're not, it's kind of why some young kids do best with like the crazy aunt, or the bookworm aunt or whatever it is, the grandfather. They just know that they can go there and kind of spill, and that person isn't swayed one way or the other. They just kind of let them be.
Right. Yes.
Well, if you or anyone is in the middle of a family conflict, looking for a therapist, we highly recommend Jeff Williams here. Or if you are in the process of ending your marriage or in the middle of a contentious custody, please contact our firm.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's Sweet Divorce.